I want to hold my baby.
Mary, I need you to push. Now. The voice cut through everything. Sharp, urgent, but Mary barely heard it. Because the pain,
I want to hold
it didn't
my
come in
baby.
waves anymore. It stayed heavy, constant, overwhelming. Her fingers tightened around the hospital sheets. Knuckles pale, breathing uneven. I can't, she gasped, her voice breaking mid-sentence. Yes, you can, the nurse said quickly, stepping closer. Look at me. Focus, okay? You're almost there. Almost. That word didn't feel real. Not with the way her body trembled. Not with the way her chest rose too fast. Too shallow. Mary's head turned slightly. Just enough. And her eyes found him, standing near the foot of the bed. Still, composed, watching everything without panic. Her father. He didn't speak, didn't rush, didn't interfere. But his presence, it held the room together in a way nothing else could. Mary's lips parted again. A sharp breath pulled in, then out. Okay, she whispered to herself, more to steady her mind than her body. Her hand moved instinctively, resting over her stomach. Not out of fear, not this time, but connection. Hey, I got you, she murmured softly, her voice quieter now. Grounded, real, the doctor stepped in again. Mary, this is it. One more push. One more push. Her eyes squeezed shut. Her body tensed. And then, she screamed, not loud, not dramatic, just raw, honest, everything leaving her at once. The room held its breath. Just for a second, a small, fragile second, where everything felt suspended, and then, a sound, soft at first, then stronger, a cry. The cry filled the room, sharp at first, then steady, alive, real. Mary's body went still, not because the pain was gone, but because something else had taken its place. Relief. Her chest rose slowly. Then again, like she was learning how to breathe all over. Congratulations. The doctor said, softer now. You have a healthy baby. The words landed, but didn't fully register. Not yet, because Mary's eyes were already searching. Is my baby okay? She asked, her voice barely holding together. The nurse smiled gently. Very okay. A small pause followed. Then, movement. Careful. Intentional. The baby was lifted, wrapped, protected, and for a moment, time slowed. Mary's head turned slightly, just enough to see a glimpse, small, fragile, perfect. Her breath caught, not from pain this time, from something deeper, something she hadn't prepared for. Well, the word slipped out quietly, not planned, just felt. And then, the shift. Because instead of bringing the baby straight to her, the nurse stepped toward the side of the room. Toward him, her father. He didn't move forward, didn't reach immediately. But when the baby was placed gently into his arms, something changed. Subtle, but undeniable. His posture softened, just slightly. His gaze lowered, focused. And for the first time that night, there was emotion in his face. Not loud, not overwhelming, just present. He adjusted his hold carefully, like he understood the weight of what he was holding. Not just a child, but everything that came with it. Mary watched, quiet, still, her lips parted, but no words came out. Because this moment, it wasn't about who was supposed to be there. It was about who was. And right now, it wasn't Walker. The hallway outside was quieter than it should have been. Too still, too calm for a moment that was supposed to matter. Footsteps echoed. Fast, uneven, slightly off rhythm. Walker. His hand pushed the hospital door open harder than necessary, breathing heavier than usual. Not from distance, from urgency, from something he couldn't quite name. Where is she? He asked quickly, stopping a nurse mid-step. Delivery room. Just finished, she replied. Just finished. The words hit. Late. Too late. Walker didn't respond, didn't thank her. He just moved. Faster now. Down the hallway, past doors that all looked the same. Until he reached it. Room 312. His hand paused on the handle. Just for a second. Not hesitation. Something else. A quiet awareness. That whatever was on the other side of that door, he had already missed part of it. He pushed it open. Slowly this time. The room wasn't loud anymore. No chaos. No urgency. Just stillness. And then, his eyes landed on her, Mary, resting back against the bed, exhausted. But calm. Different. But that wasn't what stopped him. It was what came next. His gaze shifted. Just slightly. And froze. Because standing near her was her father. Holding the baby. Carefully. Like he had always been meant to. Walker didn't move. Didn't speak. Didn't even breathe right for a second. Because the realization, it didn't come all at once. It settled, slow, heavy, unavoidable. He wasn't there for the birth. He didn't hear the first cry. He didn't see the moment everything changed. And now, he was walking into something that had already happened without him. Mary looked up. Their eyes met. And for a brief moment, nothing was said, but everything was understood. Walker stepped out into the night air. The hospital doors closed behind him. Soft. Final. The noise from inside faded almost instantly. Out here, everything felt different. Cool. Quiet. Too quiet. He ran a hand over his face. Slow. Trying to process something that didn't settle right. Because no matter how he replayed it, the outcome stayed the same. He was late. Not just by minutes, but by meaning, by presence, by everything that moment was supposed to be. Well, the words slipped out under his breath. Unfinished. Because there was nothing to complete it with. Rough timing, huh? The voice came from behind him. Light. Almost amused. He didn't turn immediately. He didn't need to. He already knew. She stepped beside him anyway. Close enough to be heard. Not close enough to be questioned. You should have seen your face in there, she added quietly. Like you just realized something you can't undo. Walker exhaled. Sharp. Not now, he muttered. But she didn't stop. Of course she didn't. Listen to me, she said, her tone lowering. More focused now. You're thinking about this the wrong way. That made him glance at her, just briefly, and that was all she needed. You don't need to fix anything, she continued. You just need to get back in. A small pause. Then, the real intention surfaced. Go to her, she said. Apologize. Be present. Play the part. Walker's jaw tightened slightly, but he didn't interrupt. Because something in her voice, it wasn't emotional. It was calculated. And once you're back in, she added, softer now. Everything else follows. Walker looked away, back toward the hospital, toward the room he had just left. And suddenly, this wasn't just about being a father anymore. This was about something else, something deeper, something he hadn't fully faced yet. So let me ask you, what do you do when you get a second chance, but your reasons for taking it aren't clean? And before we go further, go ahead and like this video, because what happens next, well, it doesn't go the way you think. Welcome back to Mr. Leo Stories, where life's hardest lessons don't come easy. And the truth? It always shows up eventually. The room had quieted, not completely. Machines still hummed softly. Footsteps passed faintly in the hallway. But, compared to what it had been moments ago, this felt like stillness. Mary's head rested back against the pillow. Exhaustion lingered in her body, deep, heavy. But her eyes, they were awake, focused. Because now, the nurse was walking toward her. Slow, careful, holding something small, wrapped, protected. Here you go, she said gently. And, just like that, everything else faded. Mary's arms lifted instinctively, not rushed, not unsure, just ready. The baby was placed into her hold. Warm, light, real. Mary's breath caught, not sharply, just enough to feel it. Her fingers adjusted slightly. supporting the tiny weight against her chest. And for a moment, she didn't speak, didn't move. She just looked, really looked, at the small face, the closed eyes, the quiet rise and fall of breath. Well, the word came out soft, barely above a whisper. Her thumb brushed gently along the baby's cheek, careful, almost hesitant, like she didn't want to disturb something fragile. "I'm here," she murmured, not to the room, not to anyone else, just to the child. Her voice shifted, lower, warmer, different from anything before, because this wasn't about control, or strength, or survival. This was connection. A small sound came from the baby, soft, barely there. But Mary felt it immediately. Her body leaned in slightly, closer, protective, natural. Her eyes closed briefly, just for a second, as if she needed to hold on to the feeling before it slipped, then opened again, clear, present. Her hand moved instinctively, resting gently over the baby's back. A quiet promise, unspoken, but understood. And in that moment, everything that had happened before, the betrayal, the pain, the humiliation, it didn't disappear, but it shifted, because now there was something stronger, something that didn't depend on anyone else, something that didn't ask for permission to exist, new life, and with it, something inside Mary changed, not loudly, not visibly, but completely. He hadn't moved far. Mary's father still stood near the side of the bed, not hovering, not interfering, just present, watching. But now, his focus wasn't on the room anymore. It was on her, and the child. His gaze softened slightly. Not enough for most people to notice, but enough to matter. "Let me see," he said quietly. Not a command, not a request. Something in between. Mary looked up, just briefly. Their eyes met, and nothing needed to be explained. She shifted slightly, adjusting her hold, carefully, then angled the baby just enough for him to see. He stepped closer, slow, measured, like every movement had intention behind it. His eyes lowered, taking in every detail, the small features, the stillness, the presence of something new, something that carried weight beyond the moment. "Well?" A quiet pause followed, not hesitation, just recognition. "They're strong," he said, simple, certain. Mary's lips curved slightly, not a full smile, just enough. "She is," she replied softly. The correction wasn't sharp, just precise. Her father nodded once, accepting it. No question, no doubt. His hand lifted slightly, then stopped, hovering just above the child. Not touching, not yet, because even he, a man used to control, to power, understood that this moment required something different. Respect, stillness, care. Then, slowly, his hand lowered, resting lightly against the edge of the blanket. Not claiming, not taking, just acknowledging. "I've got you," he said quietly. The words weren't directed at Mary, or even fully at the baby. They were broader than that. A statement, a promise. And unlike everything else that had been said that night, this one didn't carry doubt. Mary watched him, not questioning, not analyzing, because this was the one thing she didn't have to second guess. His presence, his protection, his certainty. Outside the room, things were still uncertain, complicated, unresolved, but inside, in this space, there was structure again, control, and more importantly, safety. Walker didn't step forward. He stayed near the doorway, not because he wasn't allowed, but because something about the moment in front of him, it didn't feel like his anymore. His eyes moved between them. Mary, the child, her father, all in one frame, complete, closed, and he stood outside of it. His hands rested at his sides, still, but not relaxed, because there was a tension there now, quiet, uncomfortable, unfamiliar. He cleared his throat lightly, not loud, just enough to make his presence known. Mary's gaze shifted, not quickly, not urgently, just acknowledging, then returned to the baby. That small action. It landed harder than anything she could have said. Walker took a step forward, slow, careful, like he wasn't sure how close he was allowed to get. "Can the first?" he started, but the words didn't finish. They didn't come out clean, because even he heard how uncertain they sounded. Her father didn't look at him, didn't react, but his presence. It shifted slightly, enough to remind him where he stood. Mary adjusted her hold on the baby, a small movement, protective, natural. Then finally, she looked up again, direct, calm. "You can stand there," she said. Her voice wasn't cold, it wasn't warm either, just clear. Walker paused. The distance between them suddenly felt defined, not by space, but by meaning. He nodded once, quietly, accepted it, because pushing further right now, it wouldn't work. Not here, not in this moment. His gaze dropped to the child, studying, trying to connect to something that had already begun without him. But the feeling, it didn't settle, not fully, because no matter how close he stood, he couldn't change one thing. He wasn't there when it started. The room held steady, quiet, grounded, but the balance inside it had changed, not loudly, not in a way that demanded attention, but in a way that couldn't be ignored. Mary shifted slightly in the bed, adjusting the baby closer to her chest. Her movements were slower now, more intentional, like everything she did had weight behind it. Because it did. Her gaze didn't wander, didn't search, it stayed where it mattered. On the child, on the future sitting right in her arms. Everything else, the past, the betrayal, the confusion, it still existed, but it didn't control the moment anymore. Well, she exhaled softly, not tired, not overwhelmed, just aware. Her fingers brushed gently along the baby's back again, steady, grounded. And in that quiet motion, something became clear. This wasn't the same woman from before, not the one standing in that ballroom, not the one waiting for answers. This version, she wasn't waiting anymore. She was deciding, and that difference? It shifted everything. Walker felt it, even from where he stood. The distance hadn't changed, but the meaning of it had, because now, he wasn't just outside the moment, he was outside the position he once held, and there was no easy way back in. Mary looked down at the child again. A faint softness touched her expression, not fragile, not uncertain, just real, because this was where her focus lived now, not on what she lost, but on what she had, and what she was building from here. So let me ask you, if life gave you a reason to start over, would you hold on to the past, or protect what's in front of you? And if you've ever had to rebuild from nothing, go ahead. Comment, new beginning. Because sometimes, the moment you think you lost everything, is the moment you gain something greater. The silence didn't break on its own. It waited, stretched, like the room was giving him space to decide if he was going to step into it, or stay where he was. Walker inhaled slowly, not steady, just enough to push the words forward. Mary. Her name came out softer than before, not controlled, not measured, just careful. Mary didn't respond immediately. Her attention remained on the child. Her thumb moved gently along the baby's back, slow, consistent, like she was following a rhythm only she could feel. Walker took another step, closer now, but still not enough to close the distance completely. I know I don't have the right to just walk in like this, he said. His voice stayed low, controlled, but not the same kind of control he used to have. This one felt uncertain. I should have been here, he continued. I should have been there when... He stopped. The rest didn't come out clean, because saying it fully would mean facing it fully. Mary adjusted the baby slightly, a small movement, protective. Then finally, she looked up. Her gaze met his, calm, unshaken, and that That made it harder. Because there was no anger in her eyes, no reaction he could push against, just clarity. Walker swallowed. His hand lifted slightly, then dropped again. "I'm sorry," he said. This time, complete. No extra words, no defense attached, just the statement. It hung there, between them, waiting for something, anything. Mary held his gaze for a second longer, then looked back down at the child, and in that moment, his apology didn't disappear. But it didn't land the way he hoped it would either. Walker shifted his weight slightly, not comfortable, not grounded, because the silence after that, it didn't feel like space. It felt like distance. "I didn't plan for it to happen like that," he said. The words came out quicker now, not rushed, but searching, trying to find something that would make sense of everything that didn't. Mary didn't look up, didn't interrupt. She just listened, or at least, she allowed him to speak. That night, the gala, it wasn't supposed to. He stopped again. His jaw tightened briefly, because even he knew. There was no version of that sentence that ended well. "I thought I had control of it," he added quietly. That part felt closer to the truth. Mary's fingers stilled for a moment against the baby's back. Just a moment, then resumed. Slow, steady. "You thought," she repeated, not questioning, not accusing, just repeating it back. Walker nodded once. "Yes." A small pause followed. Then, "I was going to fix it," he said. Mary lifted her eyes again. This time, there was something different in her expression. Not emotion, not softness, just understanding, the kind that doesn't comfort. It concludes, well, the word came out light, but it carried weight behind it. She held his gaze for a second longer. Then, "Some things don't need fixing," she said. Her voice stayed even. No edge, no rise. They just need to be seen for what they are. Walker didn't respond. Not because he didn't want to, but because he didn't have anything that could meet that. The explanation he came with, it didn't hold here. Not in this room, not in this moment. And for the first time, he realized something simple. Explaining it wouldn't change it. Mary adjusted the blanket again. Small movement. Careful. Everything she did now, it had intention behind it. Not rushed. Not reactive. Just chosen. Walker watched her, trying to read something in her expression. Anything that felt familiar. Something he could still reach. But it wasn't there. Not in the way it used to be. "I'm not trying to make excuses," he said. His voice quieter now. Less certain. I need you to understand where I was coming from." Mary didn't respond immediately. Her eyes stayed on the child, her fingers tracing the same slow rhythm across the baby's back. Then, she spoke. "You're explaining it like it changes something," she said. Her tone stayed even, not cold, not soft, just steady. Walker's brow tightened slightly. "It does matter," he replied. Mary looked up again, direct, unshaken. "No," she said. A small pause followed. Then, "It mattered when you made the choice." That settled between them. Clear, final. Walker's posture shifted slightly, not outwardly, but enough to show something underneath had tightened, because this wasn't an argument. There was no push, no pull, no back and forth, just truth, and he didn't have anything that could move it. Mary's gaze didn't linger long. She looked back down at the baby again, and in that simple action, the conversation shifted. Because her focus had already moved forward, and he was still trying to stand in something that had already passed. Walker took another step, closer than before, careful, measured, because something in the room had made it clear he couldn't just take space anymore. He had to be allowed into it. Mary. Her name softer this time, Not demanding, not controlled, just uncertain. She looked up, slowly, meeting his eyes, and this time, she didn't look away. "You can see her," she said. The words were simple, direct. Walker's breath shifted, slightly, hope, just enough to show. But then, she continued, "For the child." A pause, and then, the line that settled everything. "You're here for the child, not me." No anger, no raised voice, no emotion pushed forward, just clarity. And that made it heavier, because there was no space to argue it, no opening to push back against. Walker nodded once, slow, understanding what that meant, even if he didn't want to. "I know," he said quietly. But the words didn't carry weight. Not yet. Mary shifted the baby slightly, adjusting her hold before easing her forward, just enough. Not handing the child over, not fully offering, just allowing presence, controlled, defined. Walker stepped closer, slow, careful, like he was approaching something fragile. His eyes dropped to the baby again, trying to connect, trying to find something that felt like his, but even in that moment, he could feel it. The difference, the boundary, the space between what he had and what he lost. Mary watched him, not with anger, not with resentment, just awareness. Because this wasn't about punishment, and it wasn't about forgiveness either. It was about understanding something simple. Some things don't break loudly. They shift quietly, and once they do, they don't go back. The parking lot was quieter than before, not empty, just distant, like everything happening inside the hospital stayed there. And out here, things became clearer, sharper. The woman leaned against the side of the car, arms crossed, expression calm, too calm. Walker stepped toward her, not fully, just enough to close part of the distance. "You shouldn't be here," he said. His voice wasn't aggressive, but it wasn't welcoming either. She smiled slightly, not offended, not surprised. "Well, I figured you'd need someone thinking clearly," she replied. Walker exhaled, short, controlled. "This isn't something you fix with a plan," he said. Her head tilted slightly, studying him. "No," she agreed, "not like before." A pause followed. Then, she stepped forward, slow, measured, "And that's exactly why you need one now." Walker didn't respond, but he didn't walk away either. That was enough for her. "You're looking at this all wrong," she continued. Her voice dropped slightly, focused. "Right now, you're thinking about what you lost." Walker's jaw tightened. "That's not what this is about." She didn't argue, didn't push back, just adjusted. "Fine," she said lightly. "Then, let's talk about what you still have." That caught his attention, subtle, but real. Her eyes held his, steady. "The child," she said. The words landed, clear, intentional. Walker's expression didn't change immediately, but something behind it did. A shift, small, but there. "What about her?" he asked. Her smile returned, not wide, just enough. Everything. Silence followed, not empty, calculated, because now she had his attention fully, and she knew it. She stepped closer, not invading, not overwhelming, just positioning herself where her words would land clearly. "You don't need to fight this," she said. "Not yet." Walker frowned slightly. "I'm not trying to fight anything." "Exactly," she replied quickly. "That's the problem." A small pause followed. Then, her tone shifted, more direct now. "Right now, you're on the outside," she continued. "You saw it yourself." Walker didn't respond, but his silence, it confirmed it. "You weren't there," she added. "And now, you're asking for space in something that already moved without you." Her words weren't harsh. They didn't need to be, because they were precise, and precision, cut deeper. Walker looked away briefly, back toward the hospital. So what are you saying?" he asked. Her answer came without delay. "I'm saying you stop trying to fix what already happened." She held his gaze, Then, you play the role. That sat between them, clear, uncomfortable. Walker's expression tightened. That's not... Yes, it is, she interrupted calmly. You show up. You stay consistent. You do everything right. A beat. Then, you win her trust. Walker shook his head slightly. That's not how this works. She stepped closer again, just enough to close the gap. It is now, she said. Quiet, certain, because right now, she doesn't need you. A pause. Then, but the child does. That shifted it. Not emotionally. Strategically. Walker's eyes moved again, back to the hospital doors, thinking, calculating. And she saw it. Of course she did. So she leaned in slightly, lowering her voice. Get back in, she said. Stay close. Another pause. Then, the real intention slipped through, because once you're in, she didn't finish immediately. She let it sit, let him fill the silence. Then, everything else follows. Walker didn't answer right away. He stayed where he was, eyes fixed on the hospital doors, like if he looked long enough, something inside would change. Something would make this simpler. It didn't. She doesn't trust me, he said finally. Not defensive, not emotional, just stating it. The woman nodded once, like she had already factored that in. Of course she doesn't, she replied. No hesitation, no attempt to soften it. That's not something you get back with words. Walker's brow tightened slightly. Then what? Her gaze didn't leave his. Time, she said, and positioning. That word, it sat differently. Walker looked at her, really looked this time. What does that even mean? She exhaled slowly, not frustrated, just preparing. It means you don't push, she said. You don't explain. You don't try to rewrite what already happened. A small pause. Then, you stay. Walker's posture shifted slightly, not outward, but enough. And you let her get used to you being there again. He didn't speak, because part of him, it made sense, not emotionally, but logically, and that was enough to keep him listening. She stepped back half a step, giving him space, not to leave, but to think. Right now, you're trying to close a gap that she created for a reason, she continued. So don't close it. Walker frowned. That doesn't make sense. It does, she said calmly, because if you respect the space, she stops guarding it. That landed, not fully, but enough. Walker's shoulders lowered slightly. The tension didn't leave, but it shifted, because now he wasn't just reacting anymore. He was considering, and that's exactly where she needed him. Walker looked down briefly, then back up. His expression had changed. Not completely, but enough to show something was settling in. So, I just wait? He asked. The question came slower this time. Less resistance. More thought. The woman nodded. Yes. Simple. Direct. Wait, but stay present, she added. Not distant, not detached. Just consistent. Walker's jaw shifted slightly. Thinking, processing, because this wasn't how he operated. He fixed things, controlled outcomes, moved situations where they needed to go. But this required something else, something slower, less certain. Well, he exhaled lightly. And then what? She watched him carefully, not rushing the answer, because now he was asking the right question. Then she starts letting you in, she said. A pause followed. Then, you build from there. Walker's gaze drifted again, back to the hospital, back to the room he had just left. And for a moment, he pictured it. Him inside, closer, not standing at the edge of it anymore. And that image, it held just long enough. What if she doesn't? He asked. The question came quieter, more honest. The woman's expression didn't change. Then you haven't done it right. That settled, not harsh, not loud, but firm. Walker nodded once, slow, because now, this wasn't just advice, it was a direction, a path, and whether he realized it fully or not, he had already started stepping into it. The woman watched him, carefully, because she knew that look, that shift, that moment when someone stops resisting and starts believing, and once that happens, they don't need to be pushed anymore. They move on their own. The room had settled again. Not quiet in the same way as before. This was heavier, more aware, because something had shifted outside. And it followed Walker back in. He stood near the foot of the bed now, closer than earlier, but still not close enough to feel included. Mary remained focused on the child, her movements slow, intentional, untouched by whatever was building around her. Her father, however, he noticed. Of course he did. His gaze moved toward Walker, not sharp, not aggressive, just acknowledging that he was there, and for a moment, nothing was said. Then, "Walk with me," he said, calm, even, not loud, but not optional either. Walker hesitated, just briefly, then nodded once. They stepped toward the side of the room, far enough to lower their voices, but not far enough to leave the moment behind. Mary didn't interrupt, didn't look up. She already knew. This part wasn't for her. "Well," Walker started, his voice controlled, "I assume this isn't just about conversation." Her father's expression didn't change. "No," he replied simply. A pause followed. Then, "I needed to see how you handled yourself first." Walker's brow tightened slightly, and her father looked at him fully now, measured, certain. "You showed me enough." That didn't feel like approval. It felt like confirmation. Walker straightened slightly. "What does that mean?" Another pause. Then, "It means I can speak plainly." His tone didn't rise, didn't shift, but the weight behind it, it did. Everything tied to my name, my assets, my influence. He stopped briefly, not for effect, just to make sure the next part landed clearly. "Has already been transferred." Walker frowned. Transferred where? Her father held his gaze, steady. To her, a small silence followed. Then, he clarified, "To the child." The words didn't hit all at once. They settled, slow, heavy. Walker's expression didn't change immediately, but something behind it, it shifted. Walker blinked once, then again, like he needed a second to catch up to what he had just heard. "I don't understand," he said. His voice stayed low, but there was something underneath it now. Tension, not loud, but building. Her father didn't move, didn't rush to explain, because this wasn't something that needed to be softened. "It's already been processed," he said, legally. Walker's jaw tightened slightly. "That's not something you just—" "It is," he interrupted calmly, "if you prepare for it." A pause followed. Then, "All primary holdings secured under trust." Walker's eyes narrowed. "Under her name?" Her father nodded once. "Yes, simple, final, and before you ask..." He didn't raise his voice, didn't step closer, but the room felt smaller anyway. "It cannot be accessed, redirected, or influenced without conditions being met." Walker held his gaze, trying to find something. A gap, a flaw, anything that gave him leverage. "What conditions?" he asked. Her father's expression remained unchanged. Stability, a beat, integrity, another, and protection of the child's interest. Walker exhaled slowly. Not relief, not frustration, just processing. Because the structure he was used to, the way things worked in his world, this wasn't it. This wasn't something he could move, or negotiate, or control. So what are you saying?" he asked. The question came quieter now. Less resistance, more realization. Her father looked at him. "Direct, you don't have access." The words landed clean. No edge, no emphasis. Just truth. And for the first time, Walker didn't respond immediately. Because this wasn't a situation he could step around. This wasn't something he could adjust. This was already done, locked, and he was standing outside of it. Walker didn't speak, not right away. He stood there, looking at the man in front of him, but not fully seeing him, because his mind, it was already moving, fast, connecting pieces, rechecking assumptions, trying to find something that didn't align, something he could push against. There are other accounts, he said finally. His voice was steady, but tighter now, controlled in a different way. Her father didn't react. They're included, he replied. Walker's eyes narrowed slightly. No, not all of them. A small pause followed. Then, all of them, her father said. That did it. Not loudly, not dramatically, but something inside Walker. It shifted. His shoulders straightened slightly, then dropped again, a subtle break in structure. Well? He exhaled through his nose. Short, controlled. That doesn't make sense. Her father didn't argue, didn't explain further, because at this point, there was nothing left to clarify. Walker's gaze moved away, across the room, toward Mary, toward the child, and for a moment, everything lined up. The distance, the silence, the way she hadn't reacted to his apology. Because now, it wasn't just emotional, it was structural. He wasn't just outside the moment, he was outside the position. Completely. His hand lifted slightly, then dropped again, because there was nothing to reach for, no control left to hold on to, no leverage to adjust. And that realization, it didn't hit like impact. It settled, slow, heavy, unavoidable. Walker turned back slowly, facing him again. But this time, there was no assumption in his posture, no quiet confidence holding things together, just awareness. You planned this, he said. Not accusing, not emotional, just stating it. Her father held his gaze. Yes, no hesitation, no explanation attached. Walker let out a small breath, almost a laugh. But not quite. More like something that didn't fully form. And you just waited? He asked. Another pause. Then, I observed, her father replied. That word landed differently, because it meant something simple. This wasn't reaction. This wasn't revenge. This was preparation. Walker's eyes shifted briefly, back toward Mary again, then to the child, and for the first time, he saw it clearly. Not just what he lost, but where it went. The center had moved completely. So where does that leave me? He asked. The question came quieter, more honest. Her father didn't answer immediately. He let the silence sit. Then, where you stand, he said. No added weight, no judgment, just position. Walker nodded. Once, slow, because there was nothing else to do with it. The structure had already changed. The roles had already shifted. And he was still trying to understand it from the outside. Mary adjusted slightly in the bed. The baby stirred, soft, alive, present. And that was the difference. Everything that mattered now, it wasn't tied to him anymore. It existed without him, and for the first time, that truth didn't feel like something he could fix. It felt like something he had to face. The next morning didn't rush in. It settled, slowly. Light filtered through the hospital blinds in soft lines, stretching across the floor, climbing up the wall, resting just beneath the edge of Mary's bed. The world outside had already started moving, but in here, time held a different rhythm. Mary shifted slightly against the pillows. Careful, measured, her body still carried the weight of the night before, but her movements, they were steadier now, more grounded. The baby rested against her chest, wrapped securely, breathing in small, consistent rises. Each breath felt deliberate, each tiny movement real. Mary's fingers traced along the baby's back, not consciously, just naturally, like her body already understood what to do without asking her. Her gaze didn't wander. It stayed, focused, present, because right now, Nothing else demanded her attention. Not the past, not the questions, not the things left unresolved. Just this, just here. Well, she whispered softly, her voice barely above the quiet hum of the room. The word didn't carry meaning on its own. It just existed, like she needed something small to hold on to before everything else tried to return. The baby shifted slightly. A soft sound followed. Mary's hand paused, just for a second, then adjusted, pulling her closer. Instinct, immediate, protective, and that moment, it didn't feel new anymore. It felt right. Across the room, Walker stood near the window, the same place as before, but something about him had changed. Not outwardly, not in a way anyone would immediately notice, but internally. There was hesitation now. He wasn't just standing there, he was deciding, every second, whether to step forward or stay exactly where he was. His eyes moved toward Mary, then down to the child, then back again, repeating the same quiet pattern, trying to find a place in something that no longer arranged itself around him. He cleared his throat lightly, not loud, just enough to break the stillness. "Do you need anything?" he asked. His voice came softer than usual, not controlled, not rehearsed, just careful. Mary didn't respond immediately. Her fingers continued their slow movement along the baby's back. Then, no, simple, clear, no edge, no softness, just enough. Walker nodded once, a small, almost invisible motion. He shifted slightly. His hands came together loosely in front of him, not defensive, not relaxed, just uncertain. "I can hold her," he said, after a moment. The words came slower, measured, like he had thought about them before saying them. Mary's hand stilled briefly, just a fraction of a second, then resumed. The pause was enough for him to feel it, enough for him to understand. This wasn't automatic. A few seconds passed. Then, "You can sit," she said. Her tone remained even, defined, not inviting, not rejecting, just setting space. Walker moved toward the chair, pulling it closer, careful not to make noise, careful not to disrupt anything already in motion. He sat, leaning forward slightly, not too much, just enough to show presence. His gaze dropped to the baby again, studying, observing, trying to build something, anything, that connected him to what he was seeing. "She's calm," he said quietly. The words felt small, but they were real. Mary's lips shifted slightly. Not a smile, not quite. "She is," she replied, and that was all. No conversation followed, no questions, no effort to extend the moment beyond what it naturally held. But something stayed, not comfort, not tension, just existence, shared. Walker didn't push further, didn't try to fill the silence, because now he understood something he hadn't before. Being present didn't mean being accepted, and acceptance, it wasn't something he could ask for anymore. It had to be given, and right now, it wasn't. The shift happened the moment he stepped outside. It was immediate. The calm didn't follow him. The quiet didn't stay. The doors closed behind him, and just like that, everything felt sharper, colder, less forgiving. The air hit differently, not harsh, just real. Walker paused for a second, just one, his hand resting briefly against the glass door before dropping to his side. Because stepping out of that room, it felt like stepping out of something structured, something contained, and back into something that didn't hold him the same way. "She's still not letting you in, is she?" The voice came from the side, already waiting, already aware. He didn't turn immediately, didn't need to. He knew. Of course he did. "Well?" She pressed, stepping closer. Her heels clicked lightly against the pavement. Controlled, confident. Walker exhaled slowly, not frustrated, just adjusting. "It's handled," he said. His tone stayed neutral, flat, like he was keeping something contained beneath it. She tilted her head slightly, studying him. "That's it?" she asked. Walker finally looked at her, briefly, then away. "She's letting me be there," he added. "That's enough." The woman's expression shifted, not dramatically, just enough to show she wasn't satisfied with that answer. She stepped closer, closing the space between them. "And the rest?" she asked. Her voice dropped slightly, more focused now. Walker's jaw tightened, not visibly, but enough to feel. "It's not about that right now," he replied. A pause followed. Then, her expression changed, sharpened. "That's exactly what it's about," she said. The words came clean, direct, no hesitation. Walker shook his head slightly. "No." Firm, short, but not loud. She didn't step back, didn't retreat. Instead, she leaned in just enough to hold his attention. "You're thinking small," she continued. "Right now, you're focused on being in the room." A brief pause. Then, "I'm talking about what comes after." Walker didn't respond. But something in his posture, it shifted, because now, he wasn't rejecting the idea. He was processing it. "You heard what he said," she added. "Everything is in the child's name." Walker's eyes flicked briefly toward the hospital, then back. "That doesn't change anything," he said. But this time, the words didn't carry the same certainty. She caught that. "Of course she did." "It changes everything," she replied. Her voice lowered slightly, more deliberate. "Because now, the only way in." She let the sentence hang, just for a moment. "Then, is through her." Walker's gaze shifted again, slower this time. Thinking, because this wasn't about emotion anymore. This was structure, access, position, and he understood those things better than most. "You don't get it," he said, but his tone, it lacked conviction. She stepped closer, not aggressively, just enough. "I do," she said quietly. "And you will too." A pause followed. Then, "You just need to stop pretending this is only about being a father." That landed, not loudly, but deeply. Walker looked at her, really looked, because now, the line between what he wanted and what he needed, it wasn't as clear as before. And that was exactly where she wanted him. Walker didn't answer her, not immediately. He turned slightly, just enough to face the hospital again. The glass doors reflected his image faintly, distorted, split by the light behind him. And for a second, that reflection felt accurate, because he wasn't standing in one place anymore. Not mentally, not emotionally. He was somewhere in between. "She just had a baby," he said finally. The words came quieter this time, less controlled, less certain. The woman watched him carefully. "She had your baby," she corrected. Walker's jaw shifted slightly. "That's not what I meant." "I know exactly what you meant," she replied. No edge, no raised voice, just precision. A small silence followed. Walker ran a hand over the back of his neck. Slow, grounding, because something about this, it didn't sit right, not completely. "I'm trying to do this the right way," he said. The statement wasn't defensive. It was searching, like he needed it to be true. The woman tilted her head slightly. "And what does that look like?" she asked. Walker didn't answer immediately, because the question, it wasn't simple. "It means I show up," he said, consistently. A pause. "I don't push. I don't force anything." Another. "I let her decide how much space I get." The woman nodded slowly, as if she was considering it. But her eyes, they didn't soften. "That sounds good," she said. And for a brief moment, it almost felt like agreement. Then, "But it doesn't change the outcome." Walker frowned slightly. "What outcome?" She stepped closer, not aggressively, just enough to hold his attention. "You're still outside of everything that matters," she said. Her tone stayed calm. "Even, you're just closer to the door now." That landed, because it was true, and he knew it. Walker looked away again, back toward the hospital, back toward the room where everything had shifted, because inside, he felt something steady, something real. But out here, It felt different, sharpened, calculated, and now he had to decide which one mattered more. "I'm not doing this for anything else," he said quietly. The statement came slower, more deliberate. "I'm doing this for her." The woman didn't react immediately. She let the words sit. Then, "For the child," she said. Walker's eyes moved back to her. "No," he replied. "For her." That created a pause, a real one, because that wasn't what she expected. But she adjusted quickly. "Of course she did. That's fine," she said lightly. "As long as you understand what that leads to." Walker didn't respond, because now, the line between intention and outcome, it was starting to blur. And the more he stood there, the harder it became to separate them. Later that evening, he was back inside. The room hadn't changed, not physically, but the feeling of it had settled deeper. Mary was resting now, not asleep, just still. The baby lay beside her, wrapped, quiet, safe. Walker stood near the same chair, the same position he had taken earlier, but this time, he didn't sit immediately. He just watched, taking it in, trying to align what he felt out there with what he felt in here, and the difference. It was impossible to ignore. Well, he exhaled softly. "You need anything?" The question came almost automatically now, but this time, there was something behind it, something more intentional. Mary didn't look up. "Water," she said. Simple. Walker nodded. He moved quickly, not rushed, just responsive. He poured it carefully, brought it over, held it steady as she took it. Their fingers didn't touch, not even accidentally. And that detail, it stayed with him. She drank slowly, then handed it back. "Thank you," she said. The words were polite, nothing more. Walker nodded once, then stepped back, returning to the same distance, the same space, because now he understood that every step forward had to be allowed. His gaze dropped to the baby again, watching, trying to feel something consistent, something that didn't shift depending on where he stood. "She looks like you," he said quietly. Mary glanced down briefly, then back. "She doesn't look like anyone yet," she replied. Calm, unattached. Walker nodded slowly, accepting it, even though that wasn't really what he meant. Silence followed, but it didn't feel the same as before, because now he was aware of something else, something he couldn't ignore. Out there was pressure, direction, expectation, a path that made sense in a different way. But in here, there was none of that. No strategy, no plan, just presence. And that made it harder, because one side asked him to think, to calculate, to move forward with purpose. The other asked him to stay still. And for someone like him, that felt unfamiliar, unstable. He sat down slowly, leaning forward slightly, eyes still on the child. And for a moment, he let everything else fade. The voice outside, the pressure, the direction, all of it. Because right here, there was something simpler, something he didn't need to figure out. He just needed to be present for it. But even as that thought settled, another one followed. Quieter, sharper, asking a question he hadn't answered yet. What happens when being present isn't enough? Walker's gaze lifted slightly, toward Mary, toward the space he used to occupy, without question. And for the first time, he understood something fully. He wasn't choosing between two situations. He was choosing between two versions of himself, and whichever one he stepped into next would decide everything that followed. The night didn't settle the way it should have. It lingered, heavy, unresolved. Walker stood outside again. Same spot, same quiet tension in the air. But this time, he didn't look toward the hospital, not immediately, because now there was something else pulling his focus. "You're wasting time." Her voice came before her steps, confident, already certain of where the conversation was going. Walker didn't turn, not right away. "I'm not rushing this," he said. His tone stayed even, but there was something beneath it now, resistance, not strong, but present. She moved closer, slow, measured. "You think you have time to take this slow?" she asked. A small pause followed. Then, "You don't." Walker exhaled through his nose. Controlled. "I'm doing what I need to do." "That's exactly what I'm trying to fix," she replied. The words landed sharp, clean. Walker turned this time, facing her fully. "And what exactly do you think needs fixing?" She didn't hesitate. "Your approach. Simple, direct, no hesitation." Walker's brow tightened slightly. "I'm not approaching this like a deal," he said. Her lips curved just slightly. "Not a smile. Just recognition. That's your mistake." A pause. Then, "Everything is a deal," she added. Walker shook his head once. "No." Firm, short, but it didn't carry the same certainty it would have before. She stepped closer, closing the space between them, not aggressively, just enough to hold him there. "You're standing outside a system you don't control anymore," she said. Her voice lowered, more deliberate now. "And you think showing up is enough?" Walker didn't answer, because part of him, it knew, showing up wasn't enough. Not anymore. "Well," she continued, her tone softening just slightly. "Then, let me ask you something." A brief pause. Then, "What's your position right now?" Walker frowned. "What do you mean?" She tilted her head. "You're not her partner." Another beat. "You're not in control of anything tied to that child." Another. "So what exactly are you?" That question didn't hit fast. It settled, slow, uncomfortable. Because the answer, it wasn't something he wanted to say out loud. Walker looked away briefly, then back. "That doesn't matter," he said. But his voice, it lacked weight. And she caught that immediately. "It matters more than anything," she said quietly. Because now, she had him exactly where she wanted him. She stepped back slightly, not retreating, just giving the moment space to settle. Because now, he wasn't resisting. He was thinking, and thinking was where she needed him. "You need structure," she said. Her tone calmer now, less sharp, more convincing. Walker's eyes stayed on her. "What kind of structure?" She didn't answer immediately. She let the silence build. Then, "The kind that puts you back in position." Walker's expression didn't shift much, but his attention, it sharpened. "And how do you think that happens?" he asked. She held his gaze. "Steady, commitment." The word sat there, simple, but loaded. Walker frowned slightly. "That's not." "It is," she cut in. "Not loud, not aggressive, just precise. You need something that stabilizes you." A pause. "Something that shows you're not drifting." Walker's jaw shifted slightly. "I'm not drifting." She didn't argue, didn't push back. She just adjusted, then prove it. That landed, because now, it wasn't about what he said. It was about what he did. Walker looked away again, the pattern repeating, because every time he stepped outside, everything felt different, less grounded, more uncertain. "What are you saying?" he asked. Her answer came clean. "Marry me." The words didn't echo, they didn't shock the air. They just sat there, waiting. Walker blinked once, then again, like he needed to catch up to what she had just said. "That doesn't make sense," he replied. His voice stayed controlled, but there was tension in it now. "Real." She stepped closer again. "You need alignment," she said. "Something solid." Walker shook his head slightly. "That's not going to change anything with Mary." She nodded once. "Exactly." That stopped him, because that wasn't what he expected. "This isn't about her," she continued. "It's about you." A pause. Then, "Right now, you look unstable." Walker's expression tightened. "I'm not." She didn't react, didn't challenge it. She just kept going. And instability gets you nowhere near control. The word came back again. Control, access, position, everything she had been building toward. "You marry me," she said quietly. "You stabilize your position." Walker stared at her, not convinced. not fully rejecting it either. Because now, this wasn't just about emotion, it was about structure again. And that was something he understood. But why you? He asked. The question came slower, more deliberate. She held his gaze. Because this part, she had already prepared. Because I'm already here, she said. A beat, and I know exactly what needs to be done. Walker didn't respond. Because now, the decision wasn't simple anymore. It wasn't just right or wrong. It was calculated, and that made it dangerous. Walker didn't answer right away. He stood there, looking at her, but not fully focused, because the decision, it wasn't sitting in one place. It was moving, shifting, pulling from different directions all at once. You're asking me to make a move that doesn't connect to what I'm trying to fix, he said. His voice stayed even, but slower now, measured. The woman didn't react. She let him finish. That's exactly why it works, she replied. Walker frowned slightly. How does that make sense? She stepped closer. Not rushed, not forceful, just deliberate. Because you're still thinking this is about fixing something, she said. A pause. Then, it's not. Walker's eyes held hers, trying to find something stable in what she was saying. This is about positioning yourself where you can still move. The word move. It landed, because right now, he felt stuck. And being stuck, that wasn't something he tolerated well. Well, he exhaled lightly. This doesn't feel like a move. She tilted her head slightly. It doesn't have to feel like one, she said. It just has to be one. That settled differently. Not convincing, but not dismissible either. Walker looked away, his gaze drifting toward the hospital again, toward the room where everything had shifted without him. Because, inside, there was something real, something steady, but it didn't give him direction. It didn't tell him what came next. Out here, there was direction, clear, structured, even if it didn't feel right. What happens if this doesn't work? He asked. The question came quieter, more honest. She didn't hesitate. It will, she said. Simple, certain. Walker let out a small breath. Not relief, not frustration, just release. Because the longer he stood there, the harder it became to stay in the middle, to not choose, to not move, and eventually, he understood something. Standing still was already a decision. He looked at her again. This time, not questioning, not resisting, just evaluating. Then, fine, he said. The word came out low, controlled, but final. I'll do it. There was no dramatic shift, no visible relief on her face, just a small, almost invisible nod, because she had expected that outcome. From the moment the conversation started, the decision didn't feel different right away. That was the part that made it dangerous. Walker stood there, same position, same surroundings. Nothing around him had changed, but something inside him. It had, not in a way that felt clear, or even noticeable, just shifted, quietly, and quietly, was how things became permanent. Well, he ran a hand over his jaw. When? The question came almost automatically. Like once the decision was made, the next step had to follow. She didn't pause. Soon, simple, direct. Walker nodded once, because now, he wasn't thinking about whether it was right. He was thinking about how it would work. Structure, timing, execution, the things he understood best. And that was where the shift completed. You'll need to stay consistent with her, she added, her tone returning to that same controlled focus. Nothing changes there. Walker glanced toward the hospital again. I know. But this time, the words carried something different. Because now, his presence there, it wasn't just about the child, and he knew it. even if he didn't fully acknowledge it yet. You don't rush anything, she continued. You don't push boundaries. Walker nodded again, listening, absorbing, because this part, it aligned with what he was already doing, what he had convinced himself was right. And when the time comes, she added, you'll be exactly where you need to be. That phrase, it lingered, because it didn't explain anything. It just promised an outcome, and right now, that was enough. Walker stepped back slightly, creating space, not to leave, just to reset, because something about this moment, it didn't feel finished. It felt initiated, like a process had started and it wasn't stopping. He looked at her one last time, not searching, not questioning, just confirming. Then, I'll handle it, he said. The words came steady, controlled, and that was the moment it locked in, not when he agreed, but when he accepted responsibility for what came next, because now, this wasn't something being suggested to him. It was something he had chosen. And choices, they carried consequences, even when you couldn't see them yet. Walker turned, heading back toward the hospital doors, back toward the room, back toward Mary, back toward the child. But this time, he wasn't walking in the same way, because now, he wasn't just trying to belong there. He was moving with something else behind it. Something layered, something divided. And that was where everything began to split. The courtroom didn't feel loud. It felt tight, like every sound had somewhere specific to land. Papers shifting, chairs adjusting, low conversations that stopped the moment someone looked up. Walker stepped in first, suit pressed, posture straight. Everything about him still carried the outline of the man he used to be, but there was something missing now, not visible, just felt. He moved toward the front, didn't look back, didn't search the room, because he already knew where she would be. Mary entered moments later, not rushed, not hesitant, just steady. Her father walked beside her, same presence, same quiet authority. Nothing about him needed to announce itself, it just existed. Mary's arms held the baby close, wrapped, protected, and the moment she stepped in, something shifted. Not attention, not curiosity, something deeper, recognition of what this case actually carried. Walker's lawyer leaned in slightly. We're ready, he said quietly. Walker nodded once, eyes forward, but not fully focused, because even now, part of his mind was elsewhere, back at the hospital, back at the first moment he missed, and everything that followed it. The judge entered, everyone stood. The room adjusted instantly, controlled, ordered, then sat. Let's proceed, the judge said. No delay, no build-up, just movement. Walker's lawyer stood. Your Honor, we are here to address custodial rights and associated financial access tied to the minor child. Mary's father didn't react, didn't shift, but something in his stillness. It held weight. Walker kept his gaze forward, listening, but not fully present, because this wasn't just about the case. It was about everything leading up to it. Every choice, every decision, every moment he thought he could control and couldn't. And now, it was all here, in one room, with nowhere to step away from it. Walker's lawyer continued, measured, structured, every word placed carefully. My client seeks to establish a consistent paternal role in the child's life. A pause. Then, along with fair access to financial structures tied to familial equity. The phrasing was clean, intentional. It sounded reasonable, balanced, but underneath it, there was something else. Walker felt it, even if it wasn't spoken directly. Control, access, position. He kept his expression steady, neutral, because showing anything else, it wouldn't help. This is not a matter of conflict, the lawyer added. It is a matter of rightful involvement. Walker's eyes shifted slightly toward Mary. She didn't look at him. Her attention stayed on the child, her hand resting lightly against the small blanket, unmoved, unaffected. That unsettled him more than resistance would have, because there was nothing to push against, no reaction to meet, just distance. Well, his lawyer paused briefly, then continued, "My client has demonstrated willingness to be present." Walker's jaw tightened slightly, because even hearing it said out loud, it felt incomplete. Not false, but not fully true either. The judge leaned forward slightly, and the timeline of involvement. He asked. Walker's lawyer didn't hesitate. "Recent, Your Honor." A small silence followed. Then, due to circumstances that required adjustment. That word, adjustment, it sat wrong, even to Walker, because it made everything sound controlled, planned, when it wasn't. The judge made a note, then looked toward Mary's side. Response? Simple, direct, no emotion attached. And just like that, the balance of the room shifted again. Mary's father didn't stand immediately. He waited, just long enough to make it clear. He wasn't reacting. He was choosing when to speak. Then, he rose, calm, measured. "Your Honor," he began. His voice didn't rise, didn't push, but it carried. "The matter before you isn't about access." A pause. Then, "It's about intent." That shifted something, subtle, but real. Walker's eyes lifted slightly, because now, this wasn't about structure anymore. It was about motive. "The child is already legally secured under a protected trust," he continued. "All assets tied to that trust are bound by conditions that prioritize stability and protection. No extra words, no over-explaining, just facts. Clean, final." Walker's lawyer adjusted slightly, prepared to respond, but the judge raised a hand. "Continue." Mary's father nodded once. Then, "The petitioner is requesting access to a structure he has no standing in." That landed, clear, direct. Walker's shoulders shifted slightly, not visibly, but enough, because that was the first time it had been said like that. No position, no standing, nothing to leverage. Further, he added, his involvement began only after the structure was secured. Another pause. Then, that timing matters. The room stayed still, because now, this wasn't just legal, it was logical. Sequence, cause and effect. Walker's gaze dropped briefly, then lifted again, trying to hold on to something, anything. That kept him grounded in the argument, but the more it unfolded, the less space there was, and for the first time, he felt it clearly. This wasn't a situation he could negotiate. It was one he was being measured against. The room settled again, not quiet, but resolved, like everything that needed to be said had already been placed. The judge looked down at his notes, then up, measured, neutral. "This court recognizes the legal structure in place," he said. A pause. Then, "and finds no basis to alter financial control." Walker's chest tightened slightly, not sharp, just firm, because that part he expected, even if he didn't fully accept it. "Custodial access," the judge continued, "will be limited and structured." Another pause. Then, "based on demonstrated stability." That word came back again. Stability. But now, it didn't sound like something he could reach. It sounded like something he had to prove. And right now, he didn't have it. Walker nodded once, slow, because reacting, it wouldn't change anything. Mary didn't move, didn't respond. She just remained present, unshaken. The baby shifted slightly in her arms. A soft movement, grounding, real, and that was the difference. Everything that mattered now, it stayed with her. The structure, the control, the future. Walker stood still for a moment, then exhaled, not loudly, just enough to release something he couldn't carry forward. "Well," the word came quietly, unfinished, because there was nothing to add to it. He turned, stepping away from the front, from the argument, from the position he thought he could reclaim. And as he walked, he understood something fully. This wasn't a loss that happened all at once. It had been building, choice by choice, moment by moment, until now. There was nothing left to hold on to. The courthouse steps emptied slower than expected. People didn't rush out. They drifted, like everyone needed a moment to process what had just settled inside. Walker stepped outside first. The air felt different, not heavier, not lighter, just clearer and clarity. It wasn't always comfortable. He paused at the top of the steps, looking out, but not really seeing anything in front of him, because his focus, it hadn't caught up yet. Everything inside, the words, the outcome, the structure of it, it was still settling, slow, unavoidable. His hand moved slightly, adjusting his sleeve, a small action, pointless, but necessary, because standing still like that, it felt unfamiliar now. Behind him, the doors opened again. Mary stepped out, careful, measured. The baby rested against her, calm, unaffected by anything that had just happened. Her father followed, same presence, same quiet control. Walker didn't turn immediately, but he felt it. The shift, the moment she stepped into the same space, and for a second, he considered walking away, just leaving it there, ending it without another word. But something stopped him, not obligation, not pride, just something unfinished. He turned, slow, facing her. Mary's eyes met his, not searching, not questioning, just acknowledging. That was enough. Walker stepped down one step, then another, closing part of the distance. Not all of it, just enough. Well, he started. The word came out low, incomplete, because there wasn't a clear place to begin, and maybe there wasn't supposed to be. Walker stopped a few steps below her, close enough to speak, not close enough to assume anything. Mary remained still. Her attention didn't shift from the child, but she was listening. That much was clear. I didn't expect it to go like that, he said. His voice wasn't defensive, not controlled the way it used to be, just honest and honesty. It sounded different coming from him now. Mary didn't respond. Not immediately, because this wasn't something that needed a reaction. Walker exhaled slowly. I thought I had more ground than I did. A pause. Then, I thought I could still move things. That part. It landed closer to truth than anything he had said before. Mary's fingers adjusted slightly around the baby. A small movement, protective. Then, you were moving things, she said. Her voice calm, even. Walker's brow tightened slightly. What do you mean? Mary looked up, meeting his eyes. You just weren't paying attention to what they were becoming. That settled. Quiet, but sharp, because it didn't accuse. It clarified. Walker nodded once. Slow, because there wasn't anything to push against in that. It was accurate. I didn't see it like that, he said. Mary's expression didn't change. That's the problem, she replied. Not harsh, not emotional, just clear. Walker looked down briefly, then back up, and for the first time, there was no strategy behind his next words. No angle, no positioning. I don't know how to fix this, he said. The sentence came out raw, not polished, not structured, just real. And that was new, because before, he always had an answer, a move, a next step. Now, he didn't, and standing there like that, it showed. Mary held his gaze for a moment longer, not judging, not softening, just seeing him clearly. Then, you don't fix this, she said. Her voice stayed steady, grounded. Walker's expression shifted slightly, not surprised, but affected. What do you mean? He asked. Mary adjusted the baby slightly in her arms. Careful. Then, you live with it, she replied. Simple. Direct. The words didn't rise. They didn't carry weight through tone. They carried it through meaning. Walker swallowed. Because that wasn't something he could solve. It wasn't a problem. It was a consequence. Well, he exhaled lightly. That's it? The question came quieter, more uncertain. Mary looked at him again, and this time, there was something else in her expression, not emotion, not distance, just evolution. That depends, she said. Walker frowned slightly. On what? Mary's gaze dropped briefly to the baby, then lifted again. On what you decide to do next. That shifted it, because suddenly, this wasn't about what had already happened. It was about what came after, and for someone like him, that mattered, but not in the same way as before, because now, he didn't control the outcome. He only controlled his part in it. Walker nodded slowly, processing, not resisting, just understanding, and that was the first time he had done that fully, without trying to change anything. The space between them remained, not wide, not narrow, just defined. Walker looked at her one more time, not searching, not expecting anything back, just taking in what was left, because now, there was no confusion, no misunderstanding. Everything had settled exactly where it was meant to. I'll be there, he said quietly. The words came simple, no weight behind them, no promise attached, just intention. Mary nodded once, not approving, not rejecting, just acknowledging, because at this point, that was all that mattered, not what he said, but what he did after. She adjusted the baby slightly, turning away just enough to make it clear the conversation had reached its end. Her father stepped forward, not interrupting, just present. Walker didn't move right away. He stayed there for a second longer. Then he stepped back, creating distance, real distance this time, not just space, but position, because now he understood something he hadn't before. He wasn't trying to get back to where he was. That place didn't exist anymore, and maybe it never really did the way he thought. Mary stood still, holding the child, grounded, unmoved, but not the same, not broken, not forgiving, just changed. And change, it didn't need permission. It just happened. She looked forward, not at him, not behind her, just ahead, because that was where her focus lived now. The future, uncertain, but hers. And as Walker turned, walking away, one question remained, not answered, not resolved, just present. So the real question is, why did he really marry Mary in the first place? If you think he never truly loved her, hit like. And if you think he just didn't understand what he had until it was gone, comment below. He really marry Mary in the first place? If you think he never truly loved her, hit like. And if you think he just didn't understand what he had until it was gone, comment below.
If you like the story, please subscribe, like, leave a comment, and share with your friends and family. Thank you.